What if the person you wanted the most in the world finally loved you back, but loved you so much that it became terrifying? Hello, everybody, and welcome back. I am the Dramatic Critic. Today, we're diving into Obsession, one of the most talked about horror films of 2026. Obsession follows Bear, a music store employee, secretly in love with his childhood friend Nikki, desperate to finally be loved back. Bear uses a mysterious, supernatural object called the One Wish Willow to make Nikki fall in love with him. But instead of creating the perfect romance, the wish twists Nikki's love into something possessive, obsessive, and horrifying. At first, the movie almost feels like an awkward romantic drama. Then slowly, it turns into a psychological horror. Nikki becomes clingy, emotionally unstable, violent, and increasingly disconnected from reality. Bear realizes too late that he didn't create real love. He created dependency. What makes this movie stand out is how grounded the emotions feel. Underneath the supernatural horror, this is a real movie about wanting validation so bad that you ignore the consequences. The film asks a brutal question: would you still want someone's love if it wasn't freely given? And that's where the horror starts. This movie reflects on real-world issues, and there's a few of them. One of the real-world issues that is shown in this movie is emotional dependency and codependency. The movie explores what happens when love becomes identity. Nikki's obsession mirrors real relationships, where one partner becomes emotionally consumed by the other. Some early viewers even described the movie as being about toxic codependency rather than just possession. People sometimes romanticize phrases like, "I can't live without you. You're my entire world. I need you." But Obsession shows how unhealthy that mindset can become when boundaries disappear. Another world issue: male entitlement and fantasy. The movie also reflects modern conversations about loneliness and entitlement in the dating culture. Bear believes love can only be obtained through desperate alone instead of mutual connection. Bear isn't portrayed as evil, he's portrayed as emotionally desperate. And that's what makes him dangerous. The movie argues that loneliness itself isn't the problem. The problem begins when someone believes affection is something that they deserve or can control. And the last real-world issue is wanting the fantasy instead of the reality. The film destroys the fantasy of perfect love. Bear thinks he wants Nikki's affection, but once he gets unlimited devotion, he realizes real love needs freedom. Without freedom, love starts to become imprisonment. So I want to talk about both characters, Bear and Nikki. I'll go with Bear first. Bear represents insecurity mixed with emotional passivity. He avoids rejection so much that he literally rewrites reality instead of risking vulnerability. And honestly, a lot of people understand that fear. Not the supernatural part, but the fear of admitting feelings towards someone, risking embarrassment, or hearing the word no. The movie asks, would you face rejection honestly or receive fake love? Most people, they choose honesty, but when you're lonely enough, validation can become addictive. If I were Bear, the healthiest answer would just be accepting the uncertainty and risking rejection naturally instead of just forcing affection. I get nowadays people are shy and they don't like to hear the word no, or they're scared for the truth, the real answer. But you know what? I've come across a girl that I liked and she said no, and I'll be honest, it does hurt. But if you look on the bright side, at least that person is in your life. It's hard to connect with people nowadays. Everything's through online. So having that connection as a friend or bestie or partner, whatever, as long as that person's in your life, that's a gift itself. If they don't see you as a future partner or somebody long-term, that's okay. It's not the end of the world. So they said no. You move on. It's their loss. It's all good. Now with Nikki's psychology, Nikki is terrifying because she becomes a distorted version of devotion. She loses autonomy. She becomes consumed by attachment. Her character symbolizes how obsession destroys individualism. The more she loves Bear, the less human she becomes. And one of the dark parts of the movie is that there are moments when Nikki seems trapped inside herself and aware something is wrong, but unable to escape it. And if I were Nikki, that's even scarier, because her situation represents losing control over your own emotions and identity. So here's a hot take for everybody. I keep hearing that Bear is the victim, Bear is the villain of the movie. Here's a shock for you all. Bear is both. He is both victim and villain, and I'm going to explain why. This is how Bear is the victim. Bear starts as a lonely, insecure guy who can't express his feelings for Nikki. When he uses the One Wish Willow, he doesn't fully understand what's unleashed. Once the wish activates, Nikki becomes mentally and emotionally distorted, driven into violence, obsession, and instability. At that point, Bear is trapped in the consequences of something he didn't fully control. Watching Nikki's personality glitch and spiral, enduring harm, threats, manipulation, and violence from a situation he can't easily escape, eventually realizing that the wish he created was a nightmare version of the person he cared about. So in the horror sense, he is absolutely a victim of the curse he triggered. Now, let's talk about how Bear is also the villain. The darker reading is that Bear doesn't just stay as a victim, he becomes responsible as things escalate. As the story goes on, he continues to cling to the wish even after clearly it harms Nikki, hesitant to undo it or fully sacrifice his desire for her, prioritizes his attachment to her over the suffering at key moments, and only acts decisively when the situation is already catastrophic. This is where the villain interpretation comes in. Bear isn't evil as a supernatural sense, but he is the cause of the central conflict, the person who knows the truth but delays doing the right thing, emotionally selfish in a way that directly fuels the horror outcome. Here's another hot take for you guys. Nikki is the greatest icon in the horror history of 2026. Absolutely stealing the show. Critics and audiences keep pointing out to her performance as the reason the film works so well. Her transformation from being a normal friend to emotionally monstrous and unsettling because of her swings between vulnerability, affection, terror, and violence so quickly, it's truly amazing. This feels like the kind of horror performance people will remember for years. For me, I'm definitely going to remember this for a long time. As somebody who has dealt with somebody with mood swings and has experience with those people, seeing her perform that and bringing it to the big screen, it terrified me. It was pretty scary. Didn't even know what would happen if we were getting to get the real Nikki, the violent Nikki, the emotional, clingy Nikki. It was crazy. It even had me confused, and I was just like, that has got to be the most best performance ever. And the last hot take I want to talk about, the movie isn't about horror, it's about loneliness. The supernatural elements are secondary. As its core obsession, it's about isolation, fear of rejection, emotional dependency, and the human desire to matter to somebody. The monster isn't the curse. The monster is what loneliness can convince people to justify. The one thing I like about movies the most, it's the soundtrack with the movie. And that's what I want to talk about right now. The soundtrack and the sound design play a huge role in the making of this movie feel emotionally suffocating. Instead of relying on loud jump scare music constantly, like your normal average horror film, this film does something entirely different. The film uses eerie silence, ambient tension, distorted emotional cues, and dreamy romantic tones that slowly become corrupted, creating a contrast between love and horror. The movie sounds emotionally intimate before it sounds terrifying. That's why the horror hits harder. Near the beginning with Bear and Nikki, when they have their little montage of being cute, cooking together, watching a movie, certain scenes, little montage going on, dreamy romantic tones. But also there's a little bit of corruption that gets put into that because it's cute and it's romantic. But the corruption, when that comes into play, that's hinting at us, this doesn't feel right. This is forced love. This is a wish that is being controlled. I think the most scariest scene of all, when it comes to the music in the movie, is near the end. Nikki snaps the One Wish Willow, and now Bear is obsessed with Nikki. Kind of like how Nikki is obsessed with Bear. So both of them have that in common. They wish for each other's love. And, they're smiling and it's cute, but with the music being eerie in the background, like I said, dreamy romantic tones, but slowly becomes corrupted because it's not real love. It's forced upon because of a wish. Obsession isn't just another supernatural horror movie. It's a movie about wanting love so bad that you stop caring whether or not it's real. It turns romance into psychological horror. It turns devotion into possession. And it asks whether love without freedom is actually love at all. This is the kind of movie that sticks with you after the credits because it forces you to think about relationships, loneliness, and emotional control in ways most horror movies never attempt. And honestly, the scariest part of Obsession is realizing how human all of it feels. I'd like to thank you guys for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you on the next one. Oh, and another thing, I also received a One Wish Willow. I wish to have subscribers.